Hi, everybody. Matt Bernier, Mike Beard, taking a look at the featured event at Keeneland on Saturday afternoon. The Grade 2 Elkhorn, mile and a half on the turf course. All of our previews presented by DRF Bets. I'd encourage you to head on over to drf.com/join. Use the promo code TV150. You get a $150 sign-up bonus. Again, drf.com/join is the address. The promo code is TV150. Mike, there's a pretty significant field signed on here for the Elkhorn, a field of 12. And I think most eyes, in one of those rare instances, the horses that are going to take the lion's share of the money are coming in from California as opposed to the horses that normally go east to west. The West Coast Invaders, It's in the Post, and Hayabusa One, they're both in raging form, and they look like they're strictly the horses to beat.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I mean, I think they're both coming out of the same two races out in Southern California. They both ran really well in those two races also. You know, It's in the Post came out on top both times, and it sort of feels like, you know, I was really willing to give Hayabusa One the chance to turn the tables last time. And he just couldn't do it. It just sort of feels like maybe It's in the Post is just a little bit better than him. But I don't think there's any, you know, real denying that they're the two horses to beat in this race. And at least as far as It's in the Post goes, you don't really got to worry about him shipping. He shipped over here last year to win this race.
Yeah, you may mention winner of this race last year, the distance right in his wheelhouse. And there was just, unfortunately for Hayabusa One, you wonder, is he just ever going to get over the hump? He's better than everybody else, but maybe he's not any better than It's in the Post on the West Coast anyway. We'll find out how they both fare in Kentucky on Saturday afternoon. The number 2 is Oscar Nominated. Oscar Nominated is an honest horse if there ever was one. He usually shows up with a run more often than not. Sometimes it's good enough. More often than not, it's not good enough to get the job done on top. But I like that he's got a little bit of tactical speed, and I think that goes a long way. Ever since they've stretched him out to these longer distances, he's really seemed to blossom. He's 4 for 4 in the exacta with 2 victories.
Yeah, I totally agree with all that stuff. I mean, you know, he's just one of those horses. Like, he sort of is what he is. You can just look at any one of his, I don't know, last 12 or 15 running lines. It just looks like he runs the same race over and over again. And as you say, sometimes it's good enough and sometimes it's not. Usually it's not. What you like about a horse like Oscar Nominated is he can get any kind of a trip in a race. And from post 2 with Rosario riding, this horse is very likely going to be in a very good trip in this race. Doesn't mean he's good enough to win, but I think when they turn into the stretch in this race, he's going to be right there. And if you bet on him, you're going to have something to root for.
If you're going to take a stand against Chad Brown, you're taking a real risk at this point, simply because whatever he's touching turns to absolute gold at this point, particularly down at Keeneland. Call Provision comes in off of a long layup. We haven't seen him since the Red Smith handicap when he ran a good second behind Sprint Quality. He was only beaten by a half length. I don't know, you're the NYRA analyst. What has your opinion of this horse been all along? Because it just, to me, it seems a little bit odd that Chad has let him go through condition, really kind of seemed to take baby steps with him before throwing him into the deep end.
Yeah, it's very true, and it's very interesting the way that he's handled him, especially the way he handled him last year, because when this horse began his career, Chad sort of, you know, gave him a look to be a really good horse. I mean, he went right into graded stakes races with this horse off of his debut win against New York breds, and he sort of treated him like he was maybe one of his better 3-year-old turf horses. And when that didn't necessarily pan out, they sort of backed off on him last year. That being said, they got him more distance to work with. I thought he really improved last year. He ran one good race after another, and you're just sort of, you know, at least in the first couple of months of this year since the turf course has opened up, you're just sort of in the position where, I mean, how strong do you want to be against these Chad Brown horses? They just seem to show up and win everywhere he's running them. You know, I don't love Call Provision in this race, but I like him a little bit, and I'm going to use him somewhere. He's not my top pick in the race, Matt, but I can't just throw him out.
Layoff, fresh, whatever it may be, all of Brown's horses are running, like you say, particularly on the turf. Throw them out at your own risk. Let's talk about the pace a little bit. The Timeform US pace projector. I was a little bit surprised. Maybe I shouldn't be. I was a little bit surprised to see the 5 Dot Matrix, the one that they have outright on the lead, even ahead of a horse like number 7, One Go All Go. Let's start off with Dot Matrix. Dot Matrix is getting a significant jump in class. This is going to be the toughest test of his career thus far. Brad Cox got him in good form, but from a buyer standpoint, going to need to run considerably faster.
Yeah, he's just going to have to take even another step forward, and it does look like he's improved a little bit for Brad Cox in his last 3 starts or so. You know, personally, I can't, you know, shake my memories of this horse as, you know, maybe a 30 claimer in New York. Maybe Brad Cox has gotten him this good, but it doesn't look like it to me. And even if he does make the lead in this race, I mean, is that really where you want to be with an in-form, one-go, all-go sitting right up there with you? I don't know. It feels like a tough situation for this horse.
As far as one go, all go, he is in just absolute rock solid form for Scooter Dickey. 3 triple-digit buyers out of his last 4 races, and the only other effort that was in there of those 4 was a 99. So he's really living in that triple-digit range. He can't quite get over the hump. You know what his game is. He's going to be forwardly placed. He got beat by Sadler's Joy 2-back. He got beat by High Happy most recently. He's been running against good company. You could make the argument he's been keeping as good form in class as anyone else.
Yeah, he really has. He's run really well in his last couple of starts, too. They went, longer with 1 mile and 3/8 than 1.5 miles, and I thought he handled it pretty well. That's not to say he didn't have his chance to win both of those races. He just wasn't quite good enough at the end, but he still ran really well. Does Dot Matrix really hamper his chances all that much in this race? I suppose that he could, but it just feels to me like one go, all goes a lot better than that horse. Doesn't necessarily have to be right on the lead to run his best race. I think he's a pretty dangerous horse here. We'll see what kind of price he is.
I was interested to see that the pace projector at Hayabusa won sitting 3rd in this race, because I figured a horse like the 11 Big Ben drawn just to his inside, who's shown in the past the ability to be forward. It seems like as he's gotten older, they've been able to adapt a little bit, but I still think he does his best running when he's more forwardly placed. And he's won at Keeneland before. I kind of figured he would be more forward. The problem is, if you do like a horse like this, his form in 2018 so far has been absolutely dreadful.
Yeah, his last 3 races are really, really tough to get past when you're looking at the kind of field he's going to be running against on Saturday. His win in the Sycamore last year, even at that point when he was in better form, I sort of felt like that win even came out of nowhere in a lot of ways. He was able to get it done that day. Maybe he really likes Keeneland. Maybe he'll turn it around in this spot, but I found it pretty tough to like him in this spot.
If you're just looking for the horse that has run the fastest race to date in the entire field, that's the number 9, Bullard's Alley. Now, that fastest race came over an absolute bog in the Canadian International under Woodbine. But I have to be honest, I was impressed with how he came back and ran in the Breeders' Cup Turf. I didn't expect him to run as well as he did. He ran a good 6th in there with a 103 buyer. Maybe he hasn't come back in sparkling form, but he's been far from embarrassed in a couple of spots. And if you think that those top 2 from California take the lion's share of the money, and maybe Chad's horse takes some nibbles, Bullard's Alley is a viable alternative at what could be a middling price.
Yeah, that's all true. I agree with everything that you just said about him. And he also just happens to be, at least in my opinion, the kind of horse I think you want when he's that kind of horse. When they're betting other horses in the race and he's going to go off at a good price, I think that's when you really want to take a shot with Bullard's Alley, because he's good enough to beat a field like this when he runs his best race. We'll see if he can do it on Saturday in the Elkhorn. I'm not going to be surprised if he does. And if he is over 10-1, he's just the kind of horse I want to use somewhere.
Kennesaw goes out for Arnaud Delacour. He came over and won a stakes race at Laurel in his stateside debut, came back in the Sycamore, ran a decent 3rd, beaten 2.5 lengths by Big Ben, who we were just talking about momentarily ago. He's been gone since the middle of October. This is a considerable layoff. It's nice to know that he's run well over this turf course, but he's another horse. He's going to need some pace because he's going to come from way out of it.
Yeah, he really is. Listen, I thought his 2 races over here at the end of last year were both pretty good. The Laurel Turf Cup, it's worth pointing out when he won that race. I mean, there was a real good pace going on in that race. He was way out of it. The race set up perfectly for him, but he came with a good run and he closed it down, and I thought he backed that race up pretty well in the Sycamore. I don't think it was quite as good, but he still ran well in that race. We'll see if this race sets up that well for him and if he's ready to fire off the layoff, because it feels like this is a much tougher race than the 2 races he was in at the end of last year.
Danish Dynaformer, I hate to even think of it like this, but is it as simple as his best days are just way, way in the rearview mirror? Because it's been quite some time since we've seen one of his better efforts. Yeah,
I sort of felt like he was tailing off last year as a 5-year-old, and it's not like he came back firing off the layoff this year. Maybe he just really needed that last race. I'm going to have to stand against him in this spot, but I hope he runs well. I'm a fan of this horse. It just feels like he's lost a step.
I think we both acknowledge that the West Coast imports, they're likely the horses to beat, and it's not so much that we're against them, but we want to look for some viable alternatives possibly at a price. Let's take a look at our picks for the Grade 2 Elkhorn. You're going to go down to the inside with Ken McPeak, Soman TMA.
Yeah, I'm just interested to see what this horse can do. And, I sort of understand that maybe he's just not going to turn out to be good enough to win a race like this. And, those 2 Southern California horses just might be better than him. But this horse, he briefly showed early last year that he could actually be pretty good. He won a race, he ran really well in a race here at Keeneland, where he got wired going shorter. As soon as they stretched him out in that Louisville last year, I thought he ran great in that race. He got a fast figure for that race. I thought that was a really good performance. Unfortunately for him, he missed a ton of time after that race. And I don't think necessarily his 4 races that he's come back are as bad as they look on paper. I didn't think he got a great trip in the Sycamore off of that layoff last October. He was in a lot of traffic in that race. I thought his Connolly 2 starts back was actually really good. I think that his rider, Paco Lopez, just went way too soon in that race. And I thought it cost him at the end. I think he actually ran really well. I'm not going to be too hard on him for the Gulfstream race. I don't believe anything that happens at Gulfstream, bad or good. And it's not like it was a total disaster. It just didn't run that well in there. I'm going to give this horse one more chance at a price to jump up and see if he can still be that horse like it looked like he once might be.
Summon TMA should be a very good number in here. I would imagine the 8 Hunter O'Reilly should also be a decent number in here for Jimmy Toner. This is a horse that I've never been the biggest fan of. And when he started to win races last year, I said, either I'm completely missing the boat here, or he's just turned into a different horse. You, again, as the NYRA analyst, you've always been a little bit of a fan of his. Was the form over that last sort of few months of his campaign last year over the summer up at Saratoga, was that just sort of a blip on the radar, or is that actually what he could turn into?
No, I actually think this horse got good last year for Jimmy Toner. Listen, his big, defining win at Saratoga in the Bowling Green, not that he didn't run well in there, but that race set up really, really well for him. There was a big pace in there. There were horses making early moves, including Sadler's Joy. He just went a little too soon in that race. And this horse made the last run and closed him down, but he still ran well in that race. The thing with him is you don't have to worry about distance, Matt. He'll just go all day long. There's a chance this race sets up really well. He's a big, deep closer. He's probably going to be last when they come around that final turn in the race. So we'll see how many horses he can pass. I think this horse got good last year, though.
We'll find out if the West Coast imports that's in the post and Hayabusa 1 can get the measure of the East Coast horses. Mike's going to go with some in TMA. I'm going to go with Hunter O'Reilly and the Grade 2 Elkhorn at Keeneland on Saturday afternoon. Again, if you're going to play this race, head on over to DRF Bets and sign up. Get a nice $150 sign-up bonus. DRF.com/join is the address. The promo code is TV150. Scheduled post time for the 9th at Keeneland on Saturday afternoon, 5:30 Eastern. Good luck.